The era of Prohibition, spanning from 1920 to 1933, was a period of lawlessness, rebellion, and corruption, whose crime syndicates and new speakeasy culture left a mark on American society. The origins of Prohibition were in the evangelical, Protestant, and progressive movements. Preachers like Billy Sunday across the country sought to create a more perfect society in the eyes of God, and allied with women who feared alcohol-driven domestic violence. A strong drive movement began.
In the eyes of these activists, the reality for many homes in the U.S. at the time was that of a man going out to drink, after work spending needed money on liquor, and coming home drunk and violent. This inspired them to move for a prohibition on the production and sale of alcohol, which they believed would lower the rates of domestic violence, poverty, and alcoholism. The temperance movement gained popularity over the years, and eventually the 18th Amendment was ratified on January 17, 1919, prohibiting the sale and production of alcoholic beverages in the United States. This was soon followed by the Volstead Act, which set out the laws and enforcement policies for the federal government.
With the crackdown on the sale of alcohol, it did not take long until Americans remembered their affinity for the bottle. Men known as bootleggers soon began illegally brewing and selling alcoholic beverages across the nation.
Bootlegging eventually turned into a large business. Entire organized crime syndicates formed around filling the now vacant wet niche in the economy. The best known of these gangs today is Al Capone's Colosimo gang, which was one of the largest of the Prohibition era. Capone's Mafia and others like it ran most of the illegal brewing, shipping, and selling of alcohol, and due to the desire to control the trade, many conflicts between the gangs broke out. Violence increased throughout the 20s and early 30s, with homicide rates reaching a peak in 1933 and trailing off after the 21st Amendment ended Prohibition.
Violence at this level had a serious toll on urban populations of the U.S., especially in Chicago, where incidents like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre caused massive unrest. Despite this violence, though, many people still enjoyed the illegally sourced alcohol.
Now the mob wasn't rolling in, selling these to any schmuck on the street. Entire networks of underground bars existed, buying and selling the alcohol to paying customers. The speakeasies were big deals. They had secret passwords, even memberships to get in. Everyone from politicians to cops to laymen could be found there, all looking for alcohol. Americans from every echelon of society were more than happy to break the law for personal fun. The speakeasy business grew so large that competition began to emerge between them. This was the springboard for jazz, which was the popular form of music to be played to attract customers.
And boy, were these speakeasies popular.
Despite the obvious impacts of Prohibition, there is one particular less obvious societal effect. This is that it changed how Americans thought about laws. For one of the first times in American history, an incredible proportion of Americans were breaking the law, and were more than happy to be doing so. In the process, the federal government was made to look like a joke. Seemingly everyone sent to take down the criminals was bribed or killed. It took extensive government intervention to begin to break down the many crime syndicates and speakeasies at large. As Prohibition wore away and was eventually repealed, its legacy continued to affect American culture. The large-scale rebellion sowed the seeds for American counterculture that would grow and inspire the various movements of the 60s and 70s. These movements showed a similar lack of respect for the status quo and a willingness to break laws to achieve change.
Some aspects of speakeasy culture caused the older generations a great deal of stress, actually. Young men and women, for example, would dance scandalously close to one another in these underground bars. More importantly, however, this area set a lasting cultural precedent as blacks began to take leading roles in the American musical sphere. This would last into the periods of rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and rap and hip-hop.
The era of Prohibition, ironically, could not be described as an era without alcohol. In fact, it's very much defined and shaped around Americans' willingness to undermine law and tradition for personal pleasure, for better or for worse.